with full Prime's own creator!
Starscream!
This is the Ultimate Transformers Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime comparison video. Today we're taking a look at two KO or knockoff versions of the Studio Series Optimus Prime mold. The MD005, which comes with the trailer and all the other accessories, but more on that later, along with 3 out of 4 of the current, I guess they'll do more, AS Toys AS08 Iron General. Minus the standard red copy, because that would be kind of redundant at this point. I've got the real one and I've got the MD005. Of course, comparing them to the original Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Optimus Prime. The variants from AS Toys come each with their Ion Blaster, Energon Axe and Blast Effect, along with the Matrix. But we'll look at them in more detail soon. No instructions or anything else included. Before we take a closer look at them all, let's get the MD accessories out and take a quick look, because there's lots. MD05 or MD005, I probably will say that a lot, but MD005 is the actual name. Comes with a bunch of stuff, more than the original SS86 Prime. Obviously he has the trailer, including the command module inside and roller, his Ion Blaster, his You've Got the Touch effects, Energon Axe and Blast effects, all of which are already in the trailer. Now the extras. 3 additional Prime heads, 1 Starscream head, Starscream intakes, Starscream wings, Starscream null rays, 2 sets of interchangeable windows, plain blue or cell shaded, a battle damage side panel, and an air conditioner for alt mode. Some purple blast effects, and last but definitely not least, Megatron's arm and fusion cannon. Big time parts count here. I should note, I posted an image of this on social media and there was a lot of people thinking this was an upgrade kit. It's not, it's a KO set. That being said, let's see how it works as a budget upgrade set. I will note that all these primes were not fully transformed out of the box. None of them had these little side flaps folded in. A common mistake across the community too. I've done it myself in photographs. Just fold them away. Before we move on, if you want to see any transformations or size comparisons, please check out my Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime review. Let's check out all of MD005's accessories in action. Trailer up first. The feel, paint applications and plastic colours are pretty close, and for the most part, if it wasn't for the missing insignia, you wouldn't know at a glance. The blue plastics on the official do feel a little nicer and have tighter tolerances. The KO has slightly more matte and rough texture to it. It's a little hard to explain. The tolerances are also a little looser. The big difference here is the opening and closing of the trailer. The SS86 is smoother and more consistent, whereas MD005 opens a tad easy, and when closing has heavy clicks back in, which is due to a clearance issue at the hinges. This edge here clashes and it has to force itself back over the lip. You can see here the edges deforming in places. Just be mindful here not to shear anything off. Otherwise, form and function are just fine. Roller and the command modules are nigh on identical. Everything just stores in just fine like the official. There's even room for all the extra shit if you want it to rattle around. Now a big change and upgrade, the Energon Axe and Blast effects. The official offerings are a flexible plastic and can be easily deformed, as you can see. The MD005 improved these with a nice solid translucent plastic, which actually feels great in hand. Not that fragile, easily stressed translucent model kit style plastic that you'd expect on a KO. They can of course be used as expected. They're definitely superior though. Speaking of blast effects, we have this additional set which again has been cast in a harder plastic. This time not as nice feeling, though I actually prefer this over the Hasbro styled soft plastics. At least these shouldn't deteriorate or affect other plastics over time. Though, like said before, these could easily stress, so just be careful. They do separate and work as expected with 5mm compatibility. Moving on to the Starscream parts. The wings tab into these slots created by the hinges on the backpack. They're also pegged into themselves with 5mm pegs, so you can use them on other figures if you wish. The head swaps out via a ball joint, and the intakes tab into these slots on the top of the backpack. The null rays peg into the forearms. Look, it's from that one scene in that one episode of that one season of G1. We get it. It's dumb and it's a thing. Just enjoy the extra parts. Now the wings and head will work on the official, but the intakes don't tab in due to a slight tolerance issue, and none of the parts work with the AS toy versions. The null arrays only work with MD005, as it has additional slots on the forearms to accommodate them. The window sets can be easily inserted into the relevant window frames. There are moulding that allows them to go in only a certain way. It's fairly evident when you do it. The silver paint on the main figure helps the translucent blue pieces to pop, or you can go with the cell shaded, which are nicely painted. Just be careful not to scratch them up. The windows are a bit nicer here than the official, as there's no unsightly tabs visible. Again, a tick in the KO's favour. Each head is easily interchangeable via a ball joint, with different styles showing various animation changes throughout G1, plus the battle damage head from the Transformers the movie. Which combined with the battle damage side panel looks great. The side piece just tabs in and the quality is quite nice. These parts really lend to that community moniker of mini masterpiece. MD005 also has the ion blaster, which can be held securely in his hand or on the tab on his back for storage. Blast effects work great here too. Before the big accessories, there are a couple more for vehicle mode, but we'll get to that soon. Skybound time, baby. When Daniel Warren Johnson came up with this, I don't know if he knew how much he'd be changing Transformers forever, but here we have the Megatron arm to skybound your prime. Unfold the butterfly joints, rotate the mushroom peg out, and then reverse the process with the Megatron arm. If you haven't already, unfold this little panel and rotate out the hammer piece. We'll show you how to transform Prime with the arm attached later. Now peg in your fusion cannon and Prime's your uncle. The fusion cannon has a light up feature, which uses a magnet to activate it, though it's a bit temperamental on my copy at least. Also, the set didn't come with a magnet, or not that I could find any pieces with one hidden, so I'm using this Cambodian Bion Temple magnet. It has two modes, on or blinking, which work okay-ish with the blast effects, but at best with a singular piece. Now again, this is very temperamental. I don't know if it's the piece rattling inside, there's nowhere to open it that I can find, so I sort of have to wheel it around, bang it about, and then get the magnet, and it's all a big process, but it does work. This is great. I know DNA Designs is doing a kit for the SS86 release, but in the interim, especially as a lover of Skybound, this is fucking cool. Compatibility with the official and the AS versions, you ask? Well, let's see. First, the original. Yep, goes great and can transform with it on. As for the AS versions, it's a tight fit to get in and out, and it has stressed the socket a little bit. I wouldn't recommend it, though it is cool to see Shattered Glass Skybound Prime, or Nemesis Prime. It just suits them thematically, and hey, Magnus Prime for the sake of it. Now whilst that was fun, and I've done it so you don't have to, I have stressed all three joints of those figures, so it is what it is. A quick look at some AS toy accessories before the main comparisons. Much like MD005, the blasters are held securely and can peg into the back. We get three flavours of Energon axe and blast effects here.
Discover the rainbow, taste the rainbow.
Again, cast in a much nicer, harder plastic. The axes attach perfectly fine, though an oddly square port. And the blast effects are fractionally too small, again with a square port. They will peg in though with a little force, and it has slightly stressed the hole in the process. But for the price of these, not a big deal. We'll go over the prices and value at the end. What do you think of the crazy accessory loadout, especially from MD005? Tell me in the comments. I know my Twitter feed went crazy for it. Time for the big comparisons. We're going to break it down into the following categories: moulding and changes to details, plastic hand feel, joints, tolerances, and transformations. Now for moulding changes and details, when comparing the figures visually, outside the very obvious colour changes, there are a few subtle things changed. Firstly, as mentioned on MD005, he has additional tab slots on the forearms. Also, no screw holes visible on the back of the arms, rather a glued on panel. A nice touch. The red plastic is a shade or two darker, though the blues and whites match pretty well. The windows, as mentioned earlier, no longer have visible tab slots and different pieces can be inserted, so again that's a plus. The heels are on the right way. There are two major changes that I dare say are improvements. Firstly, the thighs are moulded with a third central piece on the MD005, which gives a cleaner look. Unfortunately, on many copies of the official release, the thighs have a slight gap in the seam, which is right central on the front, quite unsightly. It's always bothered me, so this is a welcome improvement. Secondly, and we'll see more of this in truck mode, but the calf panels that become the forward truck bed are now filled in nicely with a detailed gap filler. Very nice. Otherwise, SS86 and MD005 are fairly much identical. As for the AS toy variants, moulded details are basically the same all over, and in truck mode with the exception of the calf truck bed panels, which are now unfortunately lack the filler, and they also lack the original moulded details, which is a bit of a shame. Also some slight detail loss in the butt panel and the back of the arms. Also, the matrix annex is slightly different. Now, as for plastic hand feel, thanks Vangelis, obviously the benchmark on the official release is smooth, solid, and durable, not cheap feeling or brittleness in sight. MD005, again, as previously mentioned with the trailer discussion, has slightly more matte textured finish. It has the feel of a slightly more stressable plastic, if that makes sense, though not that I've seen any stressing yet. Though in general, it feels pretty good. If the official was a 10, I would say that MD005 is like a 7 or an 8. The AS toy versions again have very similar feel to the MD, with that slightly rough plastic, though it is dialed back again slightly. I'd give them a 5 or a 6, as the fit and finish of the plastic isn't quite as nice. As for the joints, again setting the benchmark with Studio Series 86, MD005 is similar with mostly tight joints overall, though not as consistent as SS86, which mostly has joints of the same resistance overall. The exception here is the butterfly joints, the forward being much too loose and easy to engage on accident, and the backwards joint is being far too hard to unlock. Again, the SS86 is very consistent. As for the AS toy variants, the inconsistency goes a bit deeper. The main culprits across the three, they all have loose thigh swivels and overly tight bicep swivels, which when rotating them brings us back to the issue of the butterfly joints. Like MD005, they disengage in the forward motion very easily, but this time also in the backward motion. So whenever you're twisting it, they just move by themselves. It's a little bit annoying. But the tolerances are slightly mixed over the three. I think Nemesis Prime is the worst here. While we talk joints, we might as well talk tolerances. Whilst putting the butterfly joints back in, they clash with the backpack on the AS toy mold, consistent over the three I have, which does not occur on the official or the MD005. For the most part, tolerances on MD005 are pretty decent. Some of the panels in the legs could hold a little tighter, but they do the job well enough. During transformation, for the most part, everything works pretty well and does what it's supposed to do. You know it's not the official, but again, it's not too bad. As for the AS toys, they all have very loose shin flaps, and the backpacks don't tab in securely. It's just a slight size discrepancy between the tabs and the slots, like nothing a little bit of the old floor polish trick that couldn't fix. Some other fairly obvious tolerance issues are noticeable when transforming, with tight hinges, and while not specifically a tolerance issue, some pins that I had to push in further to fix some of the problems. A specific example on Nemesis Prime, his forearm, I had to push the pin in further where the hand's held on, which caused slight damage to the forearm panel. Not me, it. Also, the thumb and index finger tend to jam when trying to open the hands. It seems like the index tip is slightly larger on this KO, not as smooth as the MD005, and more so the official mold, but definitely okay considering the average price point. Let's talk smokestacks. Whilst the SS86 has infamously loose stacks, the MD005 improves on it, though they're still a tad loose, whereas the AS toys has done well. Whilst they can still rotate, it appears as though they have slightly increased the size of the nub that holds them square, meaning you don't knock them out of place. Winner on that front. Look at these beautiful trucks, I love it. Look, the transformation process is definitely not as smooth and easy to do as the original Studio Series 86 Prime. There are definitely more tolerance issues when trying to tab in the cab panels on the AS toys, and they also have this slight bowing where the back of the truck and the cab meet. Again, some slight variance across the variants. Variance across the variants. Whereas the MD005 is pretty damn good. Everything works as expected. There's even an improvement whereas the side cab panels are now pinned on both sides of the hinge and it doesn't pop off anymore. I would say, at least on my copy, MD005 is on par with SS86 for transformation, and with the bed cap fillers and the added pins, almost superior. Plus you can stick the cool little air conditioner in the back to fill the gap. And if you haven't noticed yet, we have chromed rims and rubber tyres on the MD005, though the trailer doesn't, but it's still a cool addition and a way to differentiate from the official. One plus here is that AS toys have added die-cast fuel tanks. Of course, both trailers work as expected across the assortment, and they all look pretty great, though I would love a Magnus trailer for the white version. Even if it didn't transform, that would be incredible. Now the You've Got the Touch effects work across the board again. but with some slight variation in tolerance. Just don't force the parts in. Now as for Skybound mode, this can obviously be done from robot mode and transformed, but we're going to do it from truck mode as that's where we are. First, slightly untransform MD005. Flip the rear wheels and lower the side panels, then untab the truck bed. Open the right hand side cab panels and then swing out and disconnect the arm at the mushroom peg. Grab your Megatron arm, close away the shoulder spike hammer thingy, then connect the arm at the shoulder mushroom peg and transform it like Prime's arm. Reverse everything that you've just done and put it back into truck mode. Then you can peg in your fusion cannon and job done. Of course you can still use the light function, such a cool and welcome addition. Now I'm not showing it off, but you can do this on the official version, though I wouldn't do it on the AS toy mold, as tolerances aren't favourable. Now for the price and value, the prices vary depending on where you go of course. The Show Z store has MD005 for around 64 USD or about $100 Australian plus shipping. Hey Show Z, I've referred so many people to you guys for this set. How about a referral code? Moving swiftly on. I personally got mine through a local supplier that gets them from China directly, but the price was around the same. So for MD005, I paid about 85 and 40 shipped each, which is roughly about 120 and 60 US shipped. So similar to Show Z, as I said. You can get them through AliExpress and other Asian retailers too. As for value, I can easily say that MD005 is 100% worth the money, even if you don't care for a bunch of the extra accessories. Bang for your buck is an understatement. I'd recommend it if you have SS86, and more so if you don't. There are some colour variations coming out for this mold too, so that should be good. As for the AS toy variants, the price is great for what they are, though if you don't want the colour variants, I'd go for the MD005. As for me, I want the repaints too, so the value here is perfect, and I'm not really going to mess with them. If I was going to be handling anything, it would be the official or the MD005. Let's hope for an EVA Prime repaint. Yes please. What do you think of these sets, and will you be getting any for yourself? Let me know in the comments. Thanks everyone for watching. I've tried to cover as much as practicable, so there's a lot. But if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. That was a comparison review of MD005 and 3 AS toy variants, which are KOs of the official Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime. Thank you all so much for watching, and I greatly appreciate those that watch all the way through. If you want to support me and the channel further, I have channel memberships, Ko-fi, and Patreon. Links are all below in the description, and I'll catch you on the next one.